Hi everyone, welcome to our third video on this series, which will be comparing 12 Angry Men and Montana 1948. Today we're going to look at the settings and symbols in 12 Angry Men. Now next lesson we are going to look at Montana in detail, so this will get you all prepared for that. Now just a note on this video and what's different to the previous videos is that as we go through, there's going to be some writing that's in yellow. Now the point of that is that you need to stop the video at that point and answer those questions. So you will need to come into class with the notes on this PowerPoint as well. So make sure that you give yourself enough time. You can pause and replay this as many times as you need, but make sure that stuff in yellow gets done. So let's get started. At the top of your page, I'd like you to write down settings and symbols in 12 Angry Men. So pause the video right now. Once you've done that, you can hit play again. So your APK, what is symbolic about the weather throughout the play? So the things we're going to look at in this video include the heat when the rain comes in, opening and closing the window, the fan connected to the lights, and the rain ending as the jurors leave the room. So before we actually get started, I want you to think about what you already know, what was spoken about in class previously, and answer that question. So I'm going to look at each of those things in a little bit more detail. We're starting with heat. Now heat really represents tension and fire and everything else that's hot. So this is going to parallel the action that's going on in the room at the time and adds to the jurors' overall physical discomfort as well as their emotional discomfort. Some of them do use it as a conversation starter, but generally it really is just to represent that physical and mental oppression. Next up is the rain. Now the storm that happens in the middle of the play indicates a real shift in the psyche of the jurors. It happens right at the start of Act 2 and can often represent almost a relief in the emotional temperatures as much as the literal ones. So to understand that better, what I need you to do is to pause the video and answer that question that is up here. What happens at the start of Act 2? Now we know this storm is very angry and very strong, and it is the climax of the play. So I want you to figure out what happens just before the end of Act 1 and what happens right at the start of Act 2 to get a better understanding of what's about to happen. So pause the video now and do that, and when you come back we'll start the next one. Alright, so next up is the window. The window, and it says at the start of the play that it looks out over the Manhattan skyline. Now that's really important because it serves as this constant reminder of the bigger picture that the jurors need to pay attention to. And it also looks at those social implications of their verdict. It also represents a lot of the broader values of the jurors and this idea that they are so ingrained in that modern society that they can't actually see what's wrong. Now the other benefit of the window is that it's actually stuck and they can't figure out how to get it open. Now this is where we are always wary of watching the video. In the film from the 1950s, they actually open the window to try and get some relief and it doesn't work. Now in the play, the window doesn't actually open. So be aware of that, and it should not be open because they argue whether it gets opened or closed, that ends up staying closed. Now this disagreement can be seen as foreshadowing. So if you want to start looking at some literary techniques, you could put that in there. And it symbolises this deep divide between the perceptions of the jurors and almost sort of gives you a hint about the ones that may or may not be open to that relief that comes from the rain. Okay, this one, as you can see coming down the side, you've got quite a few questions to answer. So take your time on this slide. This is the fan. Now a lot of people sort of forget about the fan and the fact that it only gets turned on once the rain starts. It starts to get a little bit darker outside and they have to turn the light on. So it doesn't work right at the very start. And you've got this idea that they can't get any relief and they can't get physical relief, which represents their emotional relief being failed as well. So I want you to try and remember, have a look back at your notes and jot it down really quickly. What does the heat represent? Give me 2 words, that's all you need. Now, under those words, you're going to write down what the implications would be of having no relief. So we know what the heat would represent, but what's going to happen if you cannot get rid of that heat. But as I said, eventually the switch gets flicked, the fan turns on, and they realise that they can actually have a clear head. So then your other 2 questions down at the bottom What happens to the jurors' relationships once the fan turns on? So what happens to them? You don't have to give me specific jurors, but I want you to look at the differences in their relationships and the emotions that they're feeling. And why you think it might actually be important that it's connected to the light. What do you think the light would represent? And why is it important that they're only getting relief once that light is turned on? So again, pause the video, have a go at those questions, and then get started again. So next what you need to do is write down 3 dot points about each of the symbols that are below. They are the next 3 things we're going to look at. I'm going to do those in a separate video because this is your halfway point. So 3 dot points about the knife, 3 dot points about the deliberation room and sitting at a table, and 3 dot points about the washroom. So I want to know what you think they represent and why they might be important. Okay, so this video ends here. Write down these dot points and I will see you in video 4, which is going to look at these symbols.